Hey everyone, welcome to the Brave Files podcast. This is your host, Heather Vickery. This morning threw me for a little bit of a loop. I came in to record this session for you, only to discover that our darling little dog had completely chewed my microphone cord to bits. After completely losing my mind and then taking a deep breath and thinking about the options, I remembered that my amazing friend and client, Maui Jones from Reflect Media, lives just down the street. He totally saved me by giving me the perfect cord so that we could get this podcast episode out to you as soon as possible. So my heartfelt thanks to Maui Jones for making today's episode possible. Wow, friends, welcome to March, brave ones. While I'm wildly excited that spring is on the way, I'm equally shocked that the year is, as it always seems to do, going by so fast. I catch myself thinking, I'll get to that. I have so much time left in the year. And then I remember how quickly time flies. And if I'm not careful, I miss the boat on something really special or important. Does that ever happen to you? What exciting things do you want to manifest this year? Have you started taking action on them? Are you still waiting for the right moment or the right opportunity? How are you planning to transition into the life of your dreams this year? I would love to hear all about it, and I would love to be part of that success journey for you. That's why I invite you to join us for the Brave Method Workshop, March 16th through the 24th. This 9-day live interactive event is exactly what you're looking for if you're ready to say goodbye to regret and get going on making the brave leap into the next chapter of your life and business. Imagine waking up excited to dive into your day. Consider what it might feel like to simply know you're taking the steps necessary to create the life and business you've always desired. Think about how you would carry yourself knowing that you're out choosing bravely and building exactly what you want for your life. If you're ready to uncover the roadblocks holding you back and say yes to leading an intentionally brave, empowered life, then join me for the Brave Method Workshop. Again, it's March 16th to the 24th, and you can register right now at vickeryandco.com/workshop. In the workshop, you'll learn my powerful 5-part action strategy that has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs choose bravely in their business and find true empowerment within themselves each and every day. Each training session contains practical steps that you can take to help you lay the groundwork for creating your own success through building a life that's more fulfilling and a business that's more fulfilling. It's time to start that new business, write that book, become an entrepreneurial nomad, get paid to speak on the stage, open the store. Whatever it is you can dream, you can do. And the Brave Method Workshop can help you get started. You don't want to miss it. Register right now at www.vickeryandco.com/workshop. Part of having a life well lived and a business well run is stepping up and out as your radically authentic and vulnerable self. This week's guest is a longtime friend, Jenn Grace. Jenn is an author, publisher, podcaster, and all-around fascinating person with a hell of a brave story. Jenn shares with us that when we help others, we help ourselves, and sometimes that's intentional, but sometimes in helping others, we help ourselves completely by accident. For Jenn Grace, her drive to uplift underrepresented voices led her to build a meaningful and fulfilling business in publishing. This work has led Jenn down the wondrous path of true vulnerability. There's a lot of laughter in this conversation, and I challenge Jenn on what it means to be brave, so tune in to hear about that, and you are going to love how she celebrates. It's totally unexpected and absolutely worth listening to every moment of this interview. So let's get started.
Purpose, empathy, and change.
This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show. Hi, everyone. Today I am joined by Jenn Grace. She is a publisher, an author, an activist, and she happens to be a good friend. Jenn's personal journey through life hasn't always been an easy one, and yet she's a constant source of inspiration to me and so many others. And I'm really excited to have you here, Jenn, to share your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I feel like this is a long time in the making.
I know. Well, and I was a guest on your podcast a while ago. But yeah, we have been in each other's hemisphere for quite some time. And I don't know why it was random. We're like, why haven't you been on the show yet? So
well, here we are, and I'm excited.
Here we are. Yeah. All right. So those who listen regularly, and I know you've listened as well, know that I normally start talking about a personal journey, and sometimes that leads into people's work journey. And I'm going to sort of flip the script a little bit today, and I think that the reasons for that will unveil itself. But you are a publisher, but you're not a traditional publisher. And I'd love for you to tell folks a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Awesome. So correct. I'm not a traditional publisher. So for a really kind of high level and direct and to the point. So my company, Publisher Purpose, is a hybrid publisher. And essentially what you can think of as a hybrid publisher is when you look at a sliding scale, you have traditional publishing on one end and you have self-publishing on the other end. And so hybrid publishing is that beautiful middle ground where you get the services and expertise and experience and just amazingness that you would expect from a traditional publisher, but you're going to be paying expenses that are much more aligned with what you would do if you were trying to self-publish your book. So that's kind of the down and dirty. And the reason I do this work is because my personal mission is to really just elevate and amplify underrepresented voices, because I feel like publishing in general, there's just still a lack of organizations that have a real good focus on diverse and underrepresented voices. So I want to be a piece of that larger movement.
Yeah, and you definitely are. So to that point, Publisher Purpose Press. I didn't screw that name up, right? Did I get it right?
You did not.
I have a mug because I took a course. We can talk about that later, but I took one of your courses and I got this really great mug, which I love. Specifically only publishes, is it just LGBTQ work or any minority work?
It's any minority work. And the way that I would define that is really people who have just a bigger mission and purpose in their lives that they want to share, and that they're trying to impact either the greater good or impact specific communities by sharing and telling their stories.
That's really cool. I love that you do it. I love what you do. I love how you do it. You all, we're not going to spend this whole time talking about business, but go to Jenn's website, and we're going to link to it in the show notes and see all of these really cool books that she's helped bring into the world and that the team over at Publisher Purpose Press has brought into the world, which is so incredible. How did you end up in publishing?
Oh, what a fun story. I will give you the abridged version, or at least try to do so. So back in time, so we can go back an actual 15 years at this point, I was doing consulting work in the LGBTQ space. And primarily, it started off with, small businesses, independent people, just trying to help them just market themselves better. Because I feel like my background is marketing, and I find that the more diverse or underrepresented you are, in a lot of instances, marketing is just, there's a lot of emotional kind of baggage that kind of comes with like putting ourselves out there, or lack of confidence, or imposter syndrome, or any assortment of things. And obviously I'm making kind of a general statement, so it doesn't apply to everybody, but in my experience.
You could tell you do diversity and inclusion work. You have to put your qualifier out.
Yes, of course. Of course. I don't want to be completely generalizing and stereotyping people. But so I started off doing it that way. And then I slowly started working with corporations, specifically within Fortune companies around, financial service and insurance. And what happened is that as I was doing that work, everybody around me was saying, well, where's your book? And then if I said I didn't have one, they would say, well, when is it coming out? And I'm like, well, I just said I didn't have one. And they just assumed that I had to have been actively working on this. And so those questions started probably sometime around 2009, 2010. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to start a blog. And this was back in the end of 2011. And it was very much kind of like a Dear Abby approach, answering questions around the LGBTQ community. And that is the thing that led into my first book. So I wrote my first one, then a second one, then a third one. And over time, everybody I knew was saying, well, how did you know how to do this? Or how did you know how to hire an editor? Or what did you, like, where did you go for this? And it was a litany of questions on a regular basis. And I was thinking, all right, the first one I did was really tragic in a lot of ways. Like, it was a mess. And Heather, you know this, because in my PYP Academy, I actually use the example of my first book kind of throughout the curriculum to be like, you know what, just don't do what I did. And, that was a long time ago at this point. I published that one in 2013. But what I did is that I created a program because I didn't mind having these conversations, but they were coming like a lot. I was getting a lot of questions. And so I was like, you know what? I am going to put together a group program that is scalable, that I can leverage my time, and I can help more and more people. And that started I kind of had the idea in the end of 2015, launched it in 2016. And I had a couple of classes run through in 2016, and they were just incredible human beings. I legitimately love everyone that I work with. Like, there's so many awesome people in this world. And what happened is that I kept having people say, well, I know that you just spent 3 months showing me how to do this, but I'd rather just hire you to do it for me. And I was like, okay, let me think about this. And at first I was a little bit reluctant because I was finally like, oh my God, I finally hit that like scalable product where I can like really not be trading time for dollars. And after I sat on it for about a week, or it might even have been over a weekend, I realized that I had developed a really deep relationship with some of these folks. And if I weren't the one to help them bring their story to light, then maybe they wouldn't do it at all. And so I kind of took that as a sign from the universe. And there were a number of other things kind of happening at the same time, which I actually write about a little bit in my memoir. But, it was there was a number of variables that I was like, you know what, I'm doing this. And I, within a weekend, decided that I was starting a publishing company, named it, set it up, and like was ready to roll within a weekend.
You're badass.
I did not think it through. I did not look at the economics of it. I did not look at, consulting is way more profitable than publishing. None of those things. But I am so grateful I did, because honestly, if I had looked into how hard it is to have a publishing company, I would 100% would have been stuck or just not have done anything. So I'm glad that I just kind of leapt and, the net appeared as it was supposed to.
I've heard that from so many people, and I think it's probably like a Henry Ford quote or something. Like, if everyone knew how hard it would be to be an entrepreneur, nobody would do it.
Yeah.
And you were already an entrepreneur, but it's an interesting differentiation between consulting and running a company like this. What are the differences?
Well, the big difference to me was with my consulting company, it was me and one person. So I had a part-time person who, and she works with me in my publishing company now, was legitimately my right hand in all of that work. And I would get paid, $25,000 to go, fly somewhere, go do a training and come home. And 23,000 of that would be like directly into the bottom line of the company.
Yeah.
Now, like if I have a $25,000 product, maybe if I'm lucky, 4,000 of that would go to the bottom line. So, And the big difference is that it takes a team. So my company, my organization, well, yes, I'm the founder, I'm the CEO, I am the visionary. I am not the one doing the day-to-day. I do individual consulting work with a lot of folks around their books, but it's my team and they're amazing. And they're the ones that are doing the execution on this work. And so obviously with a team comes more expenses. And so just the profitability, the numbers are just really different between a consulting business and really any other business.
I think that's true. Yeah. I mean, obviously it is true. You're telling us it's true, but I feel like that makes a lot of sense. I have to just say this because you and I recently just had a chat, just a catch-up chat. You are the most organized business owner I have ever encountered in my life.
Thank you so much for saying that. It actually brings me joy knowing that that's what you think.
Yeah, but tell her, because the people listen, I promise we're going to get to the personal stuff, but this is so valuable to everybody who's listening. We were talking, it was right at the end of the year, we were talking and how people reflect and set up what they want for the coming year. And can you just share sort of what your mind-boggling to me process is?
I'll give the high level. How's that?
All right.
So for me, organization is truly, I think it's in my veins. And again, referencing my memoir, when you grow up in a very, very chaotic environment, you have to control the things you can control. And so that, I think, truly was a survival mechanism, which has just lended itself quite well to being successful within business. But the end of the year process for me, I have a document that is probably 6 or 7 pages long. That's essentially just a giant checklist that is, going through, things like your P&L statements. Obviously, I think every business owner at the end of the year is going to go through their profit and loss statement. But I also go through my entire calendar and I make sure that there's because I use my calendar a lot of times for like the important to-dos. So I go through my entire calendar. I delete off anything that didn't actually happen. And I mean, I start on, like, I'm doing this in December and I'm going back to like January 1st. It's just a whole list of things. Like I'm going through, I track my time very diligently, and it's in a program called Toggle. So I go through my Toggle time and I make sure that everything is accurate. And I actually look at how much time did I spend on sales activities, or how much time did I spend on admin minutia that I shouldn't have been involved in. And so by being able to kind of see where your time is being used, you can really make very different decisions with who do you have to hire, what skill sets are missing on your team, and just kind of move the needle forward that way. And so, that's just a couple of the 7 pages of checklists that I go through. But it works for me. It might be overwhelming for others, but I think that we don't operate with data. I think a lot of us, and I feel like I follow my gut. I'm very intuition based, but at the same time, we need data to really help understand the livelihood of our business. And so I just have all of the data points that I like to look at. And, every business is probably looking at different things, but that's it's putting it mildly, because it is a very complex system.
It is complex. And I could see how anybody listening would be like, what? It's too much. It's overwhelming. I can't do that. But what your takeaway is, which is what you just said, is so important. You all have to know what you're doing. You have to know how you're spending your time and how you're spending your money and how your team is spending their time and your money. And we can make so many better, fruitful, thoughtful decisions when we know information. And we often like to hide from it because we're, I guess, afraid of figuring out, like, oh, where did I fuck up? Or, did I actually make any money? We don't want to know that. But most times I think we find that it isn't as bad as we think it's going to be. And we learn lessons on how to continue to level up. So I just was so excited to have you share that, because knowledge is power, and prioritizing knowledge. When we talk about, my coaching method, the BRAVE method, the R stands for reassessment, reframing, and resilience. And that's exactly what this is. Like, what happened? I need to know what happened so that I can figure out what my lessons are from it and get up and do it again.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And it's so helpful to have those data points as entrepreneurs, because I think so often we don't prioritize the on the business stuff. We're focused on in the business. And if you're ever going to get out of the in the business activity, you have to focus on the business.
100%. I have that conversation with my clients, my Intentionally Brave Entrepreneurs program, every single day. Okay, so you've referenced your memoir a couple of times. So now we'll get into all of the really not that wasn't interesting and juicy, it was, but you waited a long time to write your memoir, and it's a little explosive, literally. Tell everybody what the title is.
It's called House on Fire, Finding Resilience, Hope, and Empathy in the Ashes.
And there's a picture of your childhood home on fire.
It is a house on fire, correct. It's both literal and figurative.
So really, it's explosive, but it's really a wonderful book. We have it here at our home, and we've both read it. And I would love to know, you've written business books before, but it's different writing a memoir. What's it like? And you've supported a lot of other people doing that. What's it like to be on the other side of that experience?
A bit horrifying, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I did wait a while, but at the same time, I truly had no choice but to put it out there because of how kind of trapped and confined and isolated I felt by my own story. And, knowing people, because we all have different circles of friends, different circles of business relationships. And some people know some things, other people know other things. And it just gets really messy when you are not being fully truthful with people. And it's not that you're not wanting to be truthful, but when you have just a big story and a big thing, it is hard to emotionally kind of get into it with every single person you talk to. So for me, it was very much a kind of, this is going to sound so business-esque, but like kind of like a scaled message where it's like if somebody asks a question, it's like you can go read the book and you can get all of the juicy details because I do not hold back at all.
That is so you, Jen. That is such a Jenn Grace answer to be like, listen, I wrote about this. I need you. It's like telling somebody who says, well, what's that person's email address? And you're like, hello, Google it.
Yeah. You know what? Efficiency. If I could give myself a new middle name, it would honestly be efficiency. So to me, this is just another efficient method.
I appreciate that. I do. All right. Also, will you give folks the high level? Y'all need to go and read this book, but the Cliff Notes version of the story your story that you share in your memoir.
You know, I find it actually really difficult to put it into Cliff Notes, but how I could describe it very, very high level is the first third is around being adopted. The second third is around adopting children. And the final third is about giving a child up for adoption. And so that is kind of the through line.
Wow.
And mental health and, dysfunction, chaotic households, just a lot of different kind of familial relationships that were in various different states of disrepair. And, that's just kind of the high level because I talk a lot of, because you have like big T trauma and little T traumas. Yeah. So, some of those are big T, but there's like a whole litany of little T traumas is kind of scattered throughout as well. So I know it can be a bit of an overwhelming read for folks as well.
Yeah, well, and we should say that. I mean, I think the title itself probably gives most folks an indication that you're in for a ride. I'm going to get skewered for this. I'm not a big fan of the word triggering. I'm over the word triggering because I really think that everything is a fucking trigger. And I'm not saying that if you feel those things, if something set something off in you, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you, but I find that we're starting to use that word as a crutch. Mm-hmm. Because literally, I understand if you have severe social anxiety, I've interviewed people who can't look out their window because they're afraid someone will see them. So for some people, looking out your window is a trigger. Mm-hmm. Can we just not anymore?
I get it.
My point is, if it's going to be unhealthy for you to read a book like this, then you need to know yourself well enough to know by the description that this is not the right choice. But I love that you are so vulnerable, and I love that you put it out there in this tell-all shocking way. What was the hardest part of doing that?
What is really interesting is that the entire process, from a process standpoint, I do this for a living. So I know, what step has to happen when. I know the deadlines without even thinking about them. So those are all the things that oftentimes trip up people who are writing for the first time. But when I really started to get into it, one of the things was just kind of a concern, like really concerned about how is my family going to react to me putting out as much of our information as I have. And at the same time, it was a calculated risk because I said to myself that, I have to do this for me. I have to do this for my own healing. I have to do it to kind of come out of the closet around just my life experiences. And if my family is unhappy with that, then maybe they should have treated me differently. And which is a great Anne Lamott quote, like a great quote. I even have that in the beginning of the book. Like it's not on me that somebody else didn't treat me right. And so I kind of put that fear aside. And I even thought like, maybe I'll just do it under a pen name. I don't have to do it as me. I can still get the story out there. And I was like, well, that for me, I fully endorse using pen names for other people if that's what makes sense to you. But for me, I was like, no, that's taking the easy way out. I really have to kind of do this and really do it. Like I cannot half-ass this at all. And that's why I do go as raw and vulnerable as I do, because I push people to their limits on a daily basis about how far they think that they can go with telling their story. And if I didn't do that myself, I feel like I would have looked like a hypocrite.
Yeah, I get that. We want to walk the walk and talk the talk and do all of that. And I kind of think, so I wrote for Nanowrimo. Do you ever do Nanowrimo?
Of course. Yes. It's amazing.
I really love to hear people who this is their profession still take the time to do that. I'm going to put a pin in that and I want to come back to it. But the first year I did it, I wrote a memoir-esque that I called it Gifts of My Mother. I may not ever publish it, at least not as long as she's alive. We'll see. But I was very careful that they were not her stories. They were my stories. I was telling things from my perspective, things that I'd experienced. And so they're lessons, right? Wonderful lessons, wonderful gifts that I've received, and ones that like, I watched that and now I choose not to do that kind of thing. And I think it's really important when you're talking about writing a memoir is that it's yours and you're not speaking for other people. You're speaking for you and your experiences. And you're right. If somebody didn't want you to have the experience you had, they should have behave differently.
And you know what I'll say to that is that I think all people kind of have this where we in our heads blow things somewhat out of proportion. And so one of the things that, and I write about just a lot of different family members, it's primarily kind of the story really is at the crux of it, a battle of will between my sister and myself. Like that's really kind of, she's the through line throughout the whole thing. And what's kind of just interesting about kind of just putting it out there and wondering like how people are going to receive it is that I have had family members that I felt for certain would be having zero to do with me after having read the story, because both of my parents are no longer with us, and I do not write warmly about just being the upbringing I had with my mother. And what's been interesting is that I've had family members reach out to me to say, I had no idea what you were going through.
Oh, wow.
And I find that shocking in one way, but when they've said it, it's been couched with love and empathy and care. And I thought that I was going to get like raked over the coals for sharing my story. And it has been nothing but love and support. And, at some point that will probably change. And I had braced I really was like prepared for the worst, like within therapy, even like, okay, how will, what are my coping skills when this happens? And so we had a lot of different scenarios played out. And to date, I haven't had any of that happen. And it's been so beautiful because I've actually repaired a couple of relationships with family members that never in a million years would I have thought was possible. And it's because I had the courage, as much as I don't like using that word for myself, but I did it and I put it out there. And it's been such a healing journey on so many fronts. So it's worth it, even with all of the fear and all of the things that we build up in our minds that we think is going to happen, when we don't really know what's going to happen until it's out there doing whatever it's doing.
Well, that's 100% the truth. All fear lives in the future, right? That's the whole core of my work, is in making brave choices based on what you know right now, not on what you assume or what you think. But what I love, I absolutely got chills when you were talking about family members who reached out and said, I didn't know. And part of that is, just a little reminder to everyone in the world, nobody's freaking thinking about you. And I don't mean that in the you don't matter way. They're all focused on themselves. They're all trying to live their own lives and deal with their own problems. And so people can't give us what we want if they don't know what it is, and even love. Like if they don't know we need something, not to put the onus, especially on a child, to have to ask for love. But what's so magical about that is, as adults, if we would give people the opportunity to show up for us and love us and support us more often, we would be so regularly pleasantly surprised.
That could not have been said any better. That is such a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, it's really lovely. And I'm so happy to hear that it's brought you better, stronger relationships with people that you care about. So as you're writing this really probably obviously a very difficult story, and I imagine all sorts of feelings came up, and you're a very practical person. We've already addressed that. Analytical and all of that. You still had to be feeling all of these things. What surprised you most about this process for you?
What surprised me most? That's a good question. Well, other than what I was just saying about just really being surprised by those who've showed up.
Yeah, but in the writing, when you were writing. Yeah.
In the writing. Well, I feel like it's kind of a surprise, but not kind of a surprise. One of the things that I talk about a lot throughout the story is just disassociation and how that has kind of played out over the course of time. And for me, when you're there's, dissociative identity disorder, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just like disassociation on a very, very kind of basic front. And for me, what that yields is just a very, very, very poor memory where I have giant periods of time that are completely and utterly black holes. And I have to rely on the memory or what I told somebody at the time. Actually, I jokingly always thought my memoir was going to be called If That's What I Said at the Time, just because I don't want to ever look like a liar. But there are plenty of times where I'm telling a story and then I'll say something to somebody and they're like, wasn't it this? And I'm like, well, is that what I told you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's what it was. So for me, that was actually one of the, I expected it to be difficult, but then I was also surprised by how difficult it was. And so I even have a caveat kind of in the beginning of the book that very clearly, and most memoirs have this type of disclaimer that's basically like, listen, I am cobbling this together by, journals and conversations with family, things that I do remember, photos, like really to kind of put together the entire story. And so it was definitely a challenge, but there were, and I think where that challenge kind of shows up for people is that there's just really big gaping sections of the story that aren't there. So the challenge is then how do you weave a story together when you yourself are missing just giant pieces of your own memory? So it was expected, but yet it was actually surprising at the same time.
And yet you did it and you pulled it together so beautifully. It's impressive because this is hard stuff to do. It's hard to speak our truths. And I do so much work with authenticity, and so do you, and show up as yourself and believe that the world's going to take you and love you more for that. But it's hard to do that and actually put it into practice. You said something that I cannot wait to talk about. And I can't even believe that you said it on the Brave Files. I'm so glad that you did. You literally, I could hear your cringe when you called yourself courageous.
Yep.
And so one of the questions that I love to ask is, do you feel brave? So what is your issue with courageous, my friend?
Good question. Let's have a little mini therapy session.
Not a therapist, just a coach. I'll just put a disclaimer out right now.
I have to put that disclaimer on a lot of things often as well, which is why I think we get along so well, because I feel like we both straddle that coach/therapist hat. I find it interesting because I have never in my life had an issue with confidence ever. And not to an arrogant degree, because I certainly don't think I'm an arrogant person, but I do there's a lot of people around me that I feel like really kind of struggle with confidence. And I am like, I know what I'm doing. Get out of my way. I'm on a mission.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of that is very internal. So I'm sure that might be projected externally just because it's what I believe is my internal operating system. But when it comes to brave and courageous and things like that, I feel like people can say that about me, and I feel very honored that that is what's said. But I don't ever think those are words that I would use to describe myself.
So when I hear that, what I find is that it is just simply because people don't feel like they're worthy of treating themselves the way other people would treat them.
Mm-hmm. I see that. Yeah.
Right. Or we're conditioned, whether society does do this, but certainly parents and family members can condition us. Oh, don't be so cocky. Oh, don't be so confident. Oh, don't be so sure of yourself. Or you're not all that. I don't know did any of that come up for you? Were you raised with stop pushing everybody's face that you know everything, or don't be so confident, or any of that?
Good question. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't remember a lot of my childhood.
Correct.
Right. I gotcha. Yeah, I think especially strong-willed independent women, we see it all the time. Oh, come on now, just sit down and listen and let somebody else lead. And it's really hard to say, no, I'm going to take up this space. And you do that very beautifully and unapologetically. Well, what my mission is, literally my whole goal with all of the different elements of my business and this show and my work in the community and my work as a friend and a family member is embracing the idea that brave looks different for everyone and that we all have it in us. And brave is not the absence of fear. It's not about being fearless. Fearless is for sociopaths and 3-year-olds. It's about knowing that you may not know the outcome, or that this thing may be hard to do, and understanding why it feels scary and then choosing to do it anyway with a thoughtful intention. And again, for some people, that's looking out the window or going to the grocery store. For some people, it's quitting your day job and starting a business or writing your memoir. For others, it's completely different. And there are 1,000 different ways every day to choose bravely. And when we rewrite what that's going to mean to us, we feel really fucking good when we do it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And you know what I would add to this, and what I think is interesting, is that I feel like brave and vulnerable in my mind are very interlinked together, because I feel like, to me, being brave would be being vulnerable and saying something that, would be outside of my my norm of things zone. To do. Yeah, it's safety zone. Exactly. And so for me, it's really thinking about, because I can remember a time, and I may or may not write this. I don't know if it made it into the final book, I should say. But I remember a time when I was in high school and I had a boyfriend. And for the record, I identify as queer. And so, dating straight men is not my thing, but
but it was this one time.
It was, for a couple times in high school. Yeah. And I remember him calling me a cold-hearted bitch once. And I was probably 16 or 17, and my dad passed when I was 15, so I was definitely guarded, cold, and very cranky, and like, get out of my space. Like I can remember that, like that feeling of no one is here to protect me. I have to protect myself. Yeah. And so at the time, like, I really was just kind of layering on, like going into like a cocoon of, no one can hurt me. I'm putting up this defense mechanism, all of this armor, like I am indestructible. And it has been an evolution of just my growth. And honestly, a lot of what I kind of talk about in the very, very last part of my book of just kind of like the healing and the journey is to not be brave and not be, someone that can go into battle and conquer whatever. Because again, going back to the confidence piece, I feel very confident. I can figure out whatever I need to figure out from an intellectual standpoint and a pragmatic standpoint and being practical. But when it comes to the emotional side of things, to me, that's where the bravery really lies.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, it could be reverse.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that you said that, because brave, we have this vision that it means putting on the armor and slaying the dragon. And sometimes it means taking the armor off and sitting quietly and, holding space for yourself. And it can be all of those things. And that's really, I'm just on such a mission to redefine that. And for everyone, just like, we've all heard, you should define success on your own terms, right? Like, don't try to achieve, I'm not going to try to achieve Jenn Grace's version of success. I'm going to try to achieve Heather Vickery's version of success. And brave is really the same way. And it's going to feel different for all of you. So thank you for sharing that. And just this whole idea of approaching it differently. I hope that you will maybe think about it differently, because being brave and courageous isn't a bad thing. It isn't a thing that doesn't get to be yours. And it isn't about confidence.
Yeah. I love that we went down this rabbit hole. I'm glad that I said that, because I feel like it's something for me to ponder moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that I think is a really fun, natural lead in. I am a big fan of celebration and success. We don't do it often enough. I believe that celebration is a lost art that brings us together as a community and just connects us to our joy. And when we do brave things, big, small, medium-sized brave things, and we know it and we feel good about it, it sort of leads to celebration. It sort of leads to us honoring the experience. And so how do you celebrate anything?
I'm laughing because the visual I have in my head, and I'm blunt. I say what comes to my mind.
Bring it on.
and this is, I feel certain you're not going to have had this answer yet, or maybe I'm wrong.
I so hope that's true.
Wouldn't this be great? But so I think celebrating to me, like there's things that we do with the team when, something happens and we're excited and we'll celebrate, and it's like a virtual toast or something like that. And that's fine. But for me personally, when I celebrate a lot of little wins. So it doesn't have to be like, yes, I just landed that new author or whatever it happens to be.
Absolutely.
I celebrate like the really amazing conversations that I have in a day, because I feel so blessed. Like I genuinely feel so blessed that the message that I have put out into the universe, the way that is boomeranging back to me, I get to meet and talk to incredible human beings every single day of my life. And it's such an honor and a blessing. And to me, like sometimes I end a call and I walk away from my desk, like just kind of like mind blown of like, I cannot believe I had the privilege to meet this human being. And for me, like the celebrating, like, and I was an athlete growing up. So there's like, you're doing the fist bumps, like you're, just like very masculine type of things. But literally what my go-to move is that I will sweep up whichever cat is closest to me and I will spin them like I am a Disney princess and they are whatever woodland creature that is in that Disney movie. And I will sing to them. And so that is how I roll. I sing and dance with my cats. Yep.
That's the best answer ever. And you are right. You are certain. You are correct. No one has ever said that. And also, I'm so in love with that. So I do dance parties. That's a big thing that I do. And share it. I like to share it. And I think I don't know, you're picking your cats up because they're the living, breathing things near
closest,
you. But I think that's just such a fantastic visual. I want somebody to make me a little GIF of it.
Oh my God, yes.
Can we get a GIF of
Jenn
Grace?
I'm sure we can find a way to make a GIF, because it's ridiculous. It's a whole thing at this point. And if you were to ask the question, like, what's the career that you feel like you missed your calling in? I really feel like I missed my calling in writing jingles.
Because I thought you were going to say a Disney princess, and I'm like, really, Jen?
Oh my God, can you imagine? I don't know what Disney princess that would be, but no. No, like I legitimately make up songs every single day, and it's just swapping out, like it's just any random song that I hear on the radio. Like I just come up with my own version immediately. So I have dozens upon dozens of songs that I just walk around the house singing.
I love that.
And it's usually about one of my cats, because I am a crazy cat person, apparently, is what the result of the conversation is ending to.
Keeping those stereotypes alive.
Obviously,
Jen.
Someone's got to.
That's so good. What a great answer. But I mean, listen, celebration is much like what we just talked about with bravery. I'm a big believer in celebrating those little wins, and they can be from, actually getting out of bed or getting out on time without pressing snooze, or having a great conversation, or finishing the blog post you never wanted to do, or publishing your memoir, or whatever, right? But when we share that joy, and even if you're sharing that joy with your cats and you're physically experiencing it, right? So spinning around and singing, it's this full body experience. It sets off our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the only fucking thing in the world that decreases our levels of stress. This is why celebration matters.
Yeah, I love it. You have to celebrate, because no one else is going to celebrate for you.
That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They are not. Do it. I love that. I saw something on Twitter the other day where somebody said, oh, if you can't survive without compliments, don't be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, fuck that. Give yourself compliments.
Hell yeah. You should give yourself compliments. And that's what having like a gratitude journal is.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have to have a gratitude journal for everybody around you. You can be grateful for the things that you're bringing to the table too.
Absolutely. Hey, nice plug there. I wrote 2 gratitude journals. Those of you who don't know that, we'll link to it. That's so funny. That's so good. I could go on and on with you all day, and I'm so grateful that you carved out some time to be here with us and share so much insight and knowledge and just joy that you bring to the table. But we're closing out here, so I get to ask my last big question, which is, I'm so excited to hear your answer, which is, what is your favorite charitable organization to support?
Oh, that's such a hard question, because I have so many.
I know.
I'm going to to piggyback off of my love of animals, and there's a local nonprofit organization here in the Hartford area of Connecticut called Protectors of Animals, and it's where I've adopted my 3 fur babies from, and I just love the work that they're doing. But in the same token, there are so many amazing LGBTQ organizations that are that are out there and just phenomenal. And my company, as typically at the end of the year, we'll send the authors that we worked with in the year, some kind of, just an end of the year gift, like just something that's meaningful from us to them. And this year we decided to just make a very large donation to an organization called We Need Diverse Books. And so their mission is to bring more diverse books into the universe for children to see themselves represented within. And so I have a lot of passions. I have a lot of things that I'm very interested in. And so, it spans a whole wide gamut, but I love kind of just being philanthropic when possible.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. And I love that. I love the book organization. I mean, I love the animal one too. Both of those organizations will be our charities of the week when this episode airs. We will link to it. We will share it and promote them. And listeners, this is the same call. I ask you every week, do me a favor, go see what they're up to. Click their social media likes, look at their stuff, share it with other people. If you have something to give, whatever that is, time, money, energy, anything, please do that. These things matter. They matter a lot. And I just learned about the book organization's a new one for me. So I'm so excited to know it.
Right? It's so cool. It's like, well, that seems like an obvious tie. And of course, that's what we're going to do. And with COVID, everything was taking so long for things to be shipped and whatnot. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? We're just going to start doing this, because everyone who got our postcard that was like, hey, this is what we did in your name, we were like, oh my God, this is amazing.
It's the best gift ever. Absolutely the best gift ever. I love it. Oh my gosh, Jen, this has been so wonderful. Will you share your 3 words with us one last time?
Yes, they are purpose, empathy, and change.
Yeah. I'm just sitting with them. Yeah. Purpose, empathy, and change. And really you embody that. It's clear that you're driven by purpose, and that this is your type A, you're organized, all of that. You understand why, you understand the motivation. But you are such a lovely, kind-hearted, empathetic person. And yeah, they're beautiful 3 words. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that we finally did this. This was a very fun conversation.
Me too. It was a lot of fun. I always love when we get to laugh through these episodes, because sometimes they're heavy, but there's always something to bring you joy. Listeners, I hope that you are kind of lit up from this. Go check out Jen's work. If you're thinking about writing a book, she's a really excellent resource. There's all sorts of stuff we didn't even get to talk about. So go visit her website, which is publishyourpurposepress.com.
You got it.
Yeah. I'm like, that's just a mouthful, Jen. We shorten that shit.
I actually already did. You can go to publishyourpurpose.com now.
Okay, there you go. But do that. But also, you are in control of you. You are the only person that you need to live braver, to live more joyfully, to live in gratitude and celebration. You have everything you need. You already have it. And if you're interested in learning more and being with a group of people who are ready to leverage their fear into intentional bravery to make the brave leap, I hope you'll come and hang out with us in Brave on Purpose, which is our Facebook collective. It's 100% free, and it is an incredible community of people who are ready to welcome you and help you make that brave leap. So just visit Facebook and search Brave on Purpose, and I hope that I will get a chance to see you there. We'll see you next Thursday. This is Heather Vickery, and I am here to remind you today and every single day to go out and choose bravely. Hey friends, I want to share something really exciting with you. We already know you enjoy listening to podcasts because you're listening to this one, but I'm also betting you enjoy audiobooks. And hey, listen, if you don't already enjoy audiobooks, then it's time to check them out. That's why I'm really excited to share Libro.fm with you. They are an incredible new platform for listening to audiobooks. And by choosing Libro.fm over other audiobook services, you are supporting a local bookstore of your choice and investing in your local community. Libro.fm offers over 150,000 audiobooks via their primary platform, which, by the way, they built with love and from scratch because they're a small business also. They even offer bookseller recommendations for great audiobook options. You can sign up right now via www.vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. That's vickeryandco.com/LIBROFM. And when you do, you'll get one free audiobook of your choice, and the proceeds will go to your favorite local bookstore. Now, check what I just said there. You're going to get a free book, and the proceeds are still going to go to your local bookstore because Libro.fm makes sure that their booksellers get paid even when they give a promo to customers. I've listened to over 20 audiobooks this year alone. I especially love listening to memoirs read by the author, and it feels great knowing that all of my purchases support my local bookstore, The Book Table, in Oak Park, Illinois. Libro.fm. The same audiobooks, the same price, but a completely different story. Check them out right now at vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Maybe you've had this thought and then quickly shut it down because who has the time? Or you don't know how, or gosh, it just all seems too hard. If you have something to share with the world, we want to encourage you to get your message out. The world needs to hear it. Did you know that 50% of all homes are podcast fans? If you've ever wondered about having your own podcast or how it can increase your business or get your message across, then please join me and the other experts from the Podcast Power Academy for our monthly free Q&A session. It's called So You Want to Start a Podcast? This casual live conversation will help you understand how podcasting can be a great decision, why now is the best time to get started, and how to get into action with it. Visit podcastpoweracademy.com to learn more. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories of people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes and full episode transcripts, or to get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we would love to know what you think of the show. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching. Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music was created and produced in a custom collaboration with Matt Lewis from ML Creative Consulting, a boutique firm dedicated to helping clients identify their unique sound and amplify their brand with custom delivered soundtracks. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to everyone on Team Brave, from our producers, associate producers, copy editors, writers, and support team. Special thanks to Molly, Mary, Kim, Sabra, and Sabrina. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.